So, big breaking story from Mayo Gaelic football. The Mayo News are reporting this morning that up to 10 of the county's women's footballers have walked out on the panel. Up to 10 players have walked out ahead of their All-Ireland Senior Football Championship qualifier clash with Cavan on Saturday next, according to a front page story in today's Mayo News. Amongst the players who have withdrawn from the squad are team captain Sarah Tierney, vice captain Fiona McHale and all-time leading scorer Cora Staunton. Michael McHale, the team selector, has also opted out. The Mayo News understands the players have left the squad after citing player welfare issues as the reason behind their decision. The Mayo Ladies GAA board PRO Susan Rogers has confirmed to the Mayo News that players have left the squad in the last week. So,
wow,
boom.
Player welfare issues. That is that's a far-ranging good choice of words right there.
We had Cora obviously speaking, I'd say, is it 18 months ago, about the difficulties that they'd had with the county board over the years and how they had that amazing team that made the breakthrough when she was a very young player, but that the county board hadn't supported them in the aftermath of that they hadn't had the facilities, that they hadn't had the right processes and procedures around the training. And it was a real kind of, this is what the story was with Mayo football. And so you figured that maybe they would have learned the error of their ways, but unfortunately this seems like it's a story that happens all too often, and that women's football has just gone through exactly what the men's GAA went through, except 20 years ago when the Cork hurlers went on strike for their rights. So hopefully the rest of the LGPA come out, WGPA come out and support them, and I don't know, maybe a strike is the only thing that fixes this type of stuff.
Yeah, it quite often is, particularly when it's the first instance when change might be happening, but it's happening far too slowly, that you kind of see to yourself, you've only got a limited amount of a career, you've only got so many years to actually make it and try and win an All-Ireland with your county, and there are obstacles in the way, and you are getting told things like change will happen eventually, and you're thinking to yourself, well, that's not good enough. Like, change needs to happen a lot quicker than it does, and we've seen that very, very often in Gaelic games, and I'd imagine it's far more pronounced in women's football. So fair play to them for kind of sticking it to the man, so to speak, and putting it up to the county board, because if there are issues there of player welfare issues, granted we don't know what the specific welfare issues are, then they need to get sorted ASAP. And if Cora Staunton is leading the line there, then obviously that's a big statement to the county board and to the women's football organisation in Mayo that they need to act and act fast.
I'm going to talk to Edwin McGreal of the Mayo News at around about 9:10 to get into some of the more details on that. Let's move on to Mayo Gaelic football and news that 10 players from the women's team have informed the county board that they are walking away. Ed McGreal of the Mayo News is on the line. Ed, good morning to you.
Morning, Ger.
What exactly has happened here?
Well, effectively during in the last week, 10 players have left the squad ahead of Mayo's championship clash against Cavan this coming Saturday. So the timing is clearly far from ideal, but 10 players informed the manager, Peter Leahy, of their intentions and subsequently informed the county board. The 10 players, they include team captain Sarah Tierney, vice captain Fiona McHale, and the star of the team, effectively, Mayo's all-time leading scorer, Cora Staunton. Also gone is team selector Michael McHale from the Carnagun Club. He's Fiona's father. And the reason from what we've ascertained is that they're citing player welfare issues or concerns as a reason, and we have no more specific details on that. We contacted the county board, we contacted Peter Lee, and we contacted players last night, and there was no comment from players or from the management. There was what I can describe as a holding statement from the county board, effectively confirming the players had left, but that there'd be no further comment until after the Cavan game. So that's where things are at this point in time.
Okay, so I mean, player welfare obviously covers a multitude of possibilities, everything from medical facilities to showers after training to food after training to mileage, anything. It could be anything really. So rather than speculate too much on that, was there any sign or any indication that the panel was an unhappy panel up to this point?
Not that we had ascertained. There was, I suppose, in a bit of a confusion, possibly a bit of a standoff at the end of the league. Would Cora Staunton be coming back or not? And Peter Leahy made a couple of comments, and and that just became, I suppose, a little bit messier than it needed to be. Obviously, Cora didn't play during the league because she was in Sydney playing Australian rules football for during the league, and that was. I suppose that was played out a bit more publicly than it needed to be. The will she, won't she return, and when would she return? But from what we can gather, Cora returned to the squad, and we hadn't certainly heard of any friction in the intervening weeks. But that's not to say that there wasn't underlying tensions that we weren't aware of.
This is a team who are All-Ireland contenders at the start of the year, who obviously had reached the All-Ireland final last year and who now find themselves shorn of 10 very important players ahead of a game against Cavan. Is the panel strong enough to withstand that and still win this weekend, or is this more than likely the end of the line for the team?
It's very hard to see any team cope with losses of the calibre of particularly the three players named there, Sarah Tierney, Fiona McHale, and especially Cora Staunton. And I know that the county board are quite confident that they will field, but that obviously is a question that rears its head as well when you're talking about 10 players going from a panel, particularly if you're carrying any other players that have injuries. Will Peter Leahy look at bringing in players to boost the numbers at the weekend? But it's a far from ideal situation. So you're talking from preparation has been, I suppose, torn asunder, and what plans they had in terms of team selection, in terms of a smooth week in the run up to this game, has also been torn asunder. And there was a controversy over the venue earlier last week. Mayo were very unhappy with the venue against Cavan. It's been played in Clonus. They felt it was too far away from Mayo, too close to Cavan, and they had a protest in that. Peter Leahy refused to engage in any media last week on account of that. But obviously that controversy has been greatly overtaken by this, and you would have to think that Mayo season is not going to go too much further with the losses that you're talking about here, and it also could possibly mean it could be the last time we see Cora Staunton in a Mayo jersey as well.
Why did Peter Leahy refuse to do media last week? What was the media's involvement, or why was the media to blame, or why were the media being punished for the venue decision?
Your guess is as good as mine, but no. Effectively, that was the way he decided he was going to protest it. That he wasn't going to do any media in the run up, and there was a press gig in Dublin, and Mayo didn't send any players to that as well. The messenger got shot for some reason.
Just one last thing from my perspective anyway, Ed, is just on the whole GPA element of it all, the women's GPA. Like, obviously this is a very early story. Like, have we seen anything like this before in the women's game to the extent of a strike kind of on the level of the Cork hurlers previously? I certainly, racking my brains this morning, I certainly can't think of one.
Yeah, well, there have been a few instances, a few standoffs in the past with Mayo ladies, where there have been, I suppose, clashes between the county board and the players over various selections of managers. There was an incident in 2010 where the county board actually withdrew Mayo from the championship following an issue relating to the manager at the time, and some players, and Mayo clubs actually, three Mayo clubs subsequently appealed that to Central Council, and Mayo were put back in the championship in the All-Ireland qualifiers, but had been withdrawn from the Connacht championship. So there has been tension in the past, between the county board and between the players, but this one certainly seems to be more centred on tensions between the manager Peter Lee and his management team and a core group of 10 players in the squad.
All right, Ed, great stuff. Thanks very much for joining us this morning.
Thanks, lads.